is watching. The president saying don't use this as an excuse against Israel. Who is that warning to, Peter?
Yeah, obviously he didn't say it out loud, but you obviously have to imagine he's talking about Iran in particular and others who might have, who are traditionally Israeli enemies. Right now, they're worried about what Hezbollah might do on the northern border of Israel. That's something that Iran has a great deal of influence over. And what he's trying to say is do not dare to escalate because you're not going to appreciate what happens in reaction to that. The unspoken message here as well is a president who has a long record of support for Israel, who's had some tensions in the last year or so with Prime Minister Netanyahu, disagreements about approaches to both the domestic issues inside Israel and the approach to Iran's nuclear program. But what he's trying to say here is don't let that confuse you. That the United States stands with Israel when it comes to issues like this, when it comes to its security. There is no daylight between President Biden and Prime Minister Netanyahu when it comes to a conflict, an unprovoked attack like this. That's the message the president was trying to send. And therefore, those in the Middle East who think that they can take advantage of this, and again, I think he's thinking about Iran in particular, should be very cautious about acting at this point.
There have been some Republican lawmakers already critical of the White House and the hostage deal that involved more funds that were opened up to Iran that were only to be used for humanitarian reasons. But Peter, obviously the president not addressing that. I mean, what is there to stop Iran from using those funds as anything but humanitarian reasons?
Yeah, so the deal that the Biden administration cut with Iran to release those American hostages was to unfreeze, in effect, $6 billion worth of Iran's own money that was frozen in banks in South Korea. Now, that was moved. That money was moved or is being moved to a bank in the Middle East that it will have access to only in theory for humanitarian purposes. Now, the White House has already said today that none of those monies have actually been spent so far. Even if you believe it's fungible, so far, not any of that has actually been tapped by Iran. But the critics would argue that giving Iran access to money, even for humanitarian purposes, means that they don't have to use their own money, other money, for those same purposes, and therefore freeze it up for hostile acts like potentially funding or helping groups like Hamas or Hezbollah. And that's, a quick reaction by the Republicans looking to take advantage of this moment by attacking President Biden for that hostage deal. But it was a question, of course, about whether that deal was wise in the first place. At the moment, the White House is saying, look, this has nothing to do with that. Everybody who's trying to make that point, in effect, they're saying are simply making partisan points for political gain.